podcast monetization is not what people think it is. The first thing that people ask us is like, okay, I got to get sponsors for my show. And the really like the hard pill to swallow is that if you're not getting at least 10,000 downloads per episode, not per month, per episode, sponsor is a complete waste of time. It's not going to pay enough money to be worth annoying your audience for. Until you're at 10K, monetization does not come from sponsors. However, podcasts are easily monetizable through linking it to something that your business is doing. So for example, the way that our podcast has made quite a bit of money, especially in the early days, we'd bring somebody on to interview them. We'd talk about podcasting. Usually they would have a podcast as well. And we just wanted to kind of dig into the details of how their show is doing and how they've been successful. And a couple of those people ended up becoming clients of ours because by the end of the episode, we gotten to know each other really well. They learned a little bit about what we did, and they ended up being clients of ours. But the other way that podcasts can be monetized is just simply like if you've got some type of course or core offer of some type, you can use podcasting as a way to direct people to book like a short discovery call with you. You can also use podcasting as a way to deliver a lead magnet, or you can use podcasting as a way to get somebody into like a free community of some type. So podcasting can be a funnel into a free community, and then a free community is obviously a funnel into some type of paid services. And so podcasts are not directly monetized in the normal sense of like affiliates and sponsorships, but that's not to say that they make no money. And saying that podcasting can't make you money, I know that you're not saying that, but you'd be surprised how many people do. Saying that is like saying that creating content on Instagram doesn't make you money. Creating content on LinkedIn doesn't make you money. It's not like you're going to get paid to create an Instagram post that only gets liked by 20 people. But to say that there's no chance of you getting a client from your content, we know now, especially with like Hormozy being like the biggest name around right now, we know that that is like more than false. So podcasting needs to be thought about as the same way as that, if that all makes sense together.
What's the path that a podcaster should be thinking about if they don't have one yet? Walk me through how I need to logically move through the different steps of setting up, of thinking of topics and publishing and all that.
The first part is to figure out exactly who the show is for. Name that person. What are their fears? What are their dream outcomes? Who are their heroes? Who are their anti-heroes? Like, you're building a business, so figure out who your ideal client is. Figure out who your ideal listener is. Build a persona. And after you have that, all the other stuff that you're talking about, like coming up with episode ideas, what guests to bring on, that stuff makes itself. That stuff requires guardrails, and the guardrails are a well-defined listener and how your podcast is going to be the answer to those listeners' questions. And so
and you do this for all your clients. You walk them through the whole process.
Every single client comes on, and the first thing that we do is we figure out who's your listener. Like, who do you want to talk to? You don't know what kind of content to make until you know who you're talking to. Once they figured that out, the next step becomes so painfully simple. You know who your listener is. You want to plan your first 20 episodes? Easy. What are 20 questions that your people are asking you? What are 20 questions that you answer every single week to prospective clients, to current clients, to on podcast interviews? What are the questions that people are asking in your niche? Every single one of your podcast episodes should be one of those questions. So you come up with 20 questions. Now you have 20 episodes. After you have the questions, all you do is you write down a little list of what the answers are to those questions. What you find at that point, and this is going to tie into something really, really crucial, what you find after you've listed the questions and you've listed the answers is you'll know at that point whether or not you have enough knowledge as an individual to create a solo episode around that topic. And if you don't, then and only then do you bring a guest onto your podcast. And so rather than just inviting somebody on to talk about a random topic and you don't really have any guidance for your show and you don't really know where you're going, you have a question that you know your audience is asking, and you have a person who can help you answer that question for your audience. And so rather than treating your listener as a fly on the wall of your conversation, you're putting your listener in the hot seat and answering one of their questions with the help of your guest. And so we put our people through that right at the start because we don't want anybody to have an unintentional podcast that doesn't have some type of mission behind it. Every single person who works with us needs to know who the show is for and what questions they're asking. And that way you immediately start a podcast that every listener that you get becomes a recurring listener. And that's way better than getting 10,000 people who maybe 5 of them come back for episode 2, or getting 50 people, and every single one of them come back every episode, and then they tell their friends about it. And once you have the referral machine, that's how podcasts get built. And that's the only way podcasts get actually built into these massive machines. So that's a long-winded answer of like, there's obviously a bunch of tech steps and stuff, but that's the stuff that's not like 90% of the job is figuring out like who's a listener, what's the mission they're on, how the show is going to be the answer to their problems. And then after that, you can deal with content and tech and recording. It doesn't matter that much. It's just get the mission down and the listener down. We're everywhere in the podcast space, but our main thing is helping coaches who have that dream of the podcast that they want to start, that they've always wanted to start. We help pull the dream from them and combine it with podcasting best practices to create an epic show that hopefully our goal is to put every one of our shows into the top 1%. So we call our program the Top 1% Podcaster.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end of the video, and I hope that there was something valuable in here that you can use right away in your content creation journey. By the way, if you want to listen to the full uncut version, there's 2 ways to do it. Number 1 is to click this card right around here, where it's going to link to my other YouTube channel, where there's going to be the full-length videos completely in there. And you could have that longer, in-depth conversation. Also, down below, if you'd rather listen to the full-length versions, then there's going to be links to your favorite podcast platform. As always, don't forget to share this with somebody who'd appreciate it, and give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. All right, that's it. I'll see you next week.